Ratios applications lesson. Ratios can be used to solve real-world situations. In this scenario, Julia is planning to serve hors d'oeuvres for her wedding. She plans on offering 8 hors d'oeuvres for every 3 people. If she has 240 people RSVP to the wedding, then how many hors d'oeuvres will she need to serve? All right, there's a couple things in here we can underline. The first thing, this is a ratio. 8 hors d'oeuvres for every 3 people. So I know, and I'm going to use shorthand, for hors d'oeuvres, HD, to people, P, I will have 8 for every 3 people. And the second thing that we need to know is that she has 240 people attending. What we need to know is how many hors d'oeuvres she will need. So we're going to set up a label ratio, a given ratio, and a unknown ratio. Here's our label. I've already written it once. Hors d'oeuvres to people. The given, I've already written it once. 8 to 3. And then what we also know is that for the wedding, 240 people will be coming. What we need to know is X, how many hors d'oeuvres we'll need for that amount of people. Well, looking at it in a multiplier or scale factor, I can see that I can turn 3 times 80 and get 240. So I need to do the same to the top of 8 times 80. So I'm going to change back to my color of blue and go over here and do the math. 8 times 80. Well, that gives me 640. So what that means is X, that's the number of hors d'oeuvres I need for 240 people, will be 640 hors d'oeuvres. Moving to the second problem. Mrs. Hernandez was helping her students with their classroom economy bank accounts. The sum of the student with the most money and the student with the least money was $160. That's important information. I'm going to underline it now. The sum of the most and the sum of the with the least will be 160. The ratio of the amount of the student with the most money to the least money was 4 to 1. Really, really important information. I'll just go ahead and underline it. How much money do each of the students have in their bank accounts? Well, they told us the total together, but they didn't tell us individually. So here's what we know. And I'm going to have to shorthand this. Student with the most plus the least totals 160. And then we know we have a ratio of most to least of 4 to 1. So given that, we need to go down here and do our work. This is a part to total proportion. And here's what I mean. The total, we know we started with this of 4 to 1, but that's just talking about most and least. I need to get a total. So I'm going to do a total down here, and here's how we do it. We're going to take these two numbers and add them together. So that becomes 5. And then we're also going to do the most right here. We know the most had 4 out of the 5 parts. And we'll go ahead and do our least real quick to our total. And that least only had 1 out of the 5 parts. So given what we know up top here, the most and the least together, or total, equaled 160. So I'm setting up 2 proportions at the same time so I can figure out what both of them had. Looking at this, it looks like I have a multiplier of times 32. Rule says whatever you do the bottom, you got to do the top. So I'm going to go times 32 and times 32. That's going to give me how much the most had of the 160 and how much the least had of the 160. So 1 times 32, that's real easy. The least will have 32. And the most, I'm going to have to go over here and do 4 times 32 to figure this out. I got 128. So to check my work, if I add these two, I should get 160, and that is what I got. So this is going to be my final answer, and I can move on. What we needed to know, my bad, is how much each had. And we did it right there. All right, moving on to number 3. According to the 2010 census, the state of Oregon has a population of 40 people per square mile. That word per tells me right away I have a ratio. It is 40 to 1. And that's talking about people. I'm going to shorthand it and just say people to square mile. Okay? If a county in Oregon measured 75 by 30, then what is expected of the population of the county? Well, to find a square mile, you need to multiply the length times the width, and they just gave us 75 by 30. So I'm going to go over here and do 75 times 30. And I get 2,250. So one other thing I do know, and I'm going to erase real quick and go back and write it over here. 40 to 1 is people to square mile. Okay? And the other thing I know is there are 2,250 square miles in this county. What we need to know is the expected population for the county. Not just 1 square mile, but all 2,250 square miles. So here we go. We're going to make a proportion. Label would be people to square miles. The given was 40 people for every 1 square mile. And we want to know how many people for 2,250. So I'll go ahead and change color so we can show our scale factor. 1 times 2,250 is 2,250. And then I need to go over and do some multiplication here in a minute of 40 times 2,250. So I'm going to have to use my solution area because this looks like it's a pretty big number. So by multiplying these out, first row is pretty easy. Carry a 2, 4 times 5 is 20, plus 2 is 22. Carry a 2, 4 times 2 is 8, plus 2 is 10. And carry a 1, 4 times 2. Nope, Coach McLean made an error. Erase. Let's start over. 2,250 times 40. 0, 0, 0, 0. Placeholder. 4 times 0 is 0. 4 times 5 is 20. Carry a 2. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 2 is 10. Carry a 1. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9. I got 90,000. So X is going to equal 90,000 people in the county. That was a part to whole relationship. All right, Jenna and Becca were both selling cookies door to door. Jenna sold 8 boxes of cookies for every 3 boxes of Becca. Combined, they sold a total of 385 boxes of cookies. How many boxes did each girl sell? I'm going to go back here and make sure we understand that 8 boxes of cookies for every 3 is talking about Jenna and Becca. So here's what we know. We know we have Jenna to Becca, 8 to 3. That was what was given. We also know that there was a total of 385 boxes sold. All right, so this is talking about a total. So we're now talking about a part to total and a part to total, because we got to do both Jenna and Becca's numbers. So Jenna to total would be 8 boxes, but we're going to use our given ratio, 8 plus 3, which equals 11. That's going to be our total when we just talk about Jenna and Becca. And we know that they sold a total of 385. We're trying to find out what Jenna sold. And then Becca to total would be set up the same way, but instead of having an 8, we know she sold 3 out of the 11. And we're still trying to use 385 total to find out what Becca sold. Well, I'm not sure what 11 times what equals 385. So I need to go over here real quick down at the bottom and do some long division. 11 goes into 38 3 times. That's 33. Subtract, I get a 5. Bring down the 5. 11 goes into 55 5 times. I have that. So I'm going to change my color. We know that this has a scale factor of 35. And this has a scale factor of 35. So we're going to use this to multiply the top by 35 and the top by 35. All right, so 8 times 35, 40, 24, I got 280. So Jenna, if my calculations are right, sold 280. And then Becca, we're going to multiply her 3 parts times 35. I get 15, carry a 1, I get 105. So I think Becca sold 105. If I total this up and I get 385, I know I am correct. I am correct. Final answer, Jenna sold 280 and Becca sold 105. I now can answer my question, which was right here. How much did each girl sell? Hope this helps. If you need any help, make sure you're coming to Lunch Bunch or Flex and ask me questions.